All right, let's take a trip back in time. We're heading to medieval Spain. And you know, when you think of this period, you probably think of conflict. And sure, there was that. But there was also this incredible artistic connection happening. We're going to uncover a story that isn't written in books. Nope, it's written in stone, in silk, and in paint. And it's a story that might just change how you think about borders. Okay, so let's start right here with the Fuentidueña Chapel. I mean, just look at it. This is textbook 12th century Romanesque architecture from the Christian kingdom of Leon, Castilla. You can just picture it, right? That solid, smoothly cut stone, those beautiful rounded arches, the incredible sculptures. Everything about this place just screams confident Christian identity on the Iberian Peninsula. But here's the crazy part. This chapel, it's not in Spain. Not anymore. Get this. In the 1950s, it was taken apart stone by stone, shipped all the way across the Atlantic, and then rebuilt piece by piece inside the Met Cloisters in New York City. Yeah, a little slice of medieval Segovia sitting right there in Upper Manhattan. Now, how it got there is a whole other story, super interesting. But it makes you think, right? It raises this much, much bigger question. What if the story this chapel tells isn't just about Christian Spain? What if its very stones are whispering about a world that was way more complex, way more interconnected than we think? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
Okay, so to really get this art, we've got to understand the world it was born in. And that means we need to talk about the frontier and what that word really meant back then. So when we hear the word frontier today, we probably picture a hard line on a map, right? A border. But in medieval Spain, the frontera, it wasn't a wall. It was more like a dynamic, shifting zone. Think of it as a buffer between the Muslim-ruled south and the Christian-ruled north. And yeah, there was tension for sure, but it was also buzzing with contact and creativity. So picture this. On one side, you've got Al-Andalus. This is the sophisticated, powerful, Muslim-ruled part of the peninsula. And on the other side, you have the Christian kingdoms of the north, and they're expanding. The frontier was that space in the middle, where these two massive worlds didn't just crash into each other. No, they overlapped, they mingled, they borrowed from each other in some really surprising ways. And you can literally see this exchange happening in the buildings themselves. Just look at these iconic striped horseshoe arches from the Great Mosque of Cordoba. I mean, an absolute masterpiece of Islamic design. Well, they were so admired that Christian builders started using them in their own churches along the frontier. They saw the beauty, they saw the power in this design, and they made it their own. This wasn't just, copying. It was like a conversation happening between faiths, but instead of words, they were using stone and mortar. And this kind of exchange wasn't just some random thing happening in dusty frontier towns. No way. It was being driven from the very top, from the incredibly wealthy courts of what were called the Taifa kingdoms. These were the smaller Muslim principalities that popped up after the big caliphate fell. Here's the really important part. Despite all the politics, all the religious differences, the Muslim, Jewish, and Christian elites, they all spoke the same language. And I'm talking about the language of luxury. They all loved the same stuff. Fine materials, beautiful craftsmanship, images of hunting and feasting, all the good things in life. And because they all had this shared taste, it created this amazing market for gorgeous objects that could cross any border. Okay, check this out. This is an amazing ivory box. It's called a pyxis. It was carved in a workshop down in Al-Andalus. But look closely at what's carved on it. It's not religious text. It's this beautiful, peaceful scene with lions and gazelles. I mean, who wouldn't love that? It's a vision of paradise that works for anyone, no matter what you believe. That made it the perfect diplomatic gift. It was like a little piece of shared culture. Or how about this? It's an ivory elephant from a chess set. Super elegant, really abstract. The game of chess itself actually came into Christian Europe from the Islamic world through these exact networks. So you see, it wasn't just cool objects getting traded. It was entire ideas, entire ways of thinking, strategy, entertainment that were crossing these frontiers. But the story of these objects doesn't stop when they get traded or given as a gift. Oh no. A lot of the time, that's just the beginning. These luxury items would go on to have these incredible second lives, totally transformed by whoever owned them next. So let's just follow the journey of one single piece of silk. Imagine, it starts out in a workshop in Al-Andalus, woven by an absolute master. Then it travels north, maybe as a gift or as a tribute payment. A Christian prince gets it, wears it to show off his wealth, and maybe he's even buried in it.
But the story's still not over. That same piece of fabric, which started as a fancy luxury item, could then be taken from his tomb and used to wrap the holy bones of a saint. Suddenly, it's one of the most sacred objects in the whole church. Think about that. An Islamic textile transformed into a Christian holy relic.
Okay, this all leads us to our final example, and honestly, it might be the most mind-blowing of all. We're heading to this remote little church in what used to be a frontier zone. It's called the Church of San Baudilio de Berlanga.
Now, from the outside, it doesn't look like much. Pretty simple. But you walk inside, and it is just wild. It's like nothing else you've ever seen. There's this massive column right in the middle that just sprouts up from the floor and then branches out across the ceiling, like a giant stone palm tree. And that feature, that's directly inspired by the architecture of Al-Andalus. So what you have is a Christian church that feels like a mosque's prayer hall. The architecture alone is amazing. But then, in the 12th century, a group of painters is hired to cover the walls with frescoes. So think about it. You're in this totally unique space, this hybrid of Christian and Islamic styles, in a place that was the frontier. What on earth do you choose to paint on the walls? A camel. Yep. Of all the things they could have painted, they painted a camel. And camels, they aren't from Spain. They were brought over from North Africa and were a pretty common sight down in Al-Andalus. So for a painter from the Christian North, this wasn't some mythical beast from a storybook. This was real. This was a direct observation of an animal from that other world, the one right across the frontier.
And that's the whole point, right? That one painting just captures the entire feeling of the frontier. It's two worlds meeting in a single picture. It's totally strange. I mean, a camel on a church wall? But it's also completely mundane. It's just a regular old beast of burden. It's like a photograph of what everyday life was like on the edge.
When you look at the story of medieval Spain, you see that for centuries, people from different faiths lived on the same land, they loved the same beautiful things, and they borrowed ideas from each other constantly. It really leaves you with one big question, doesn't it? What happens when we stop seeing borders as these hard dividing walls and start seeing them as what they so often are, places of contact, of creativity, these incredibly human spaces where we meet?